The smell of turkey and tension filled my parents' dining room that Thanksgiving. I sat at my usual spot at the far end of the table, trying to become invisible as my brother Michael dominated the conversation with his latest corporate triumph. "The launch is going to revolutionize everything," he announced, swirling his expensive wine. "Parker Tech's new trading platform will make us millions in the first quarter alone." I pushed my mashed potatoes around my plate, already knowing what was coming. "So Emma," my mother turned to me with her practiced look of concern, "are you still doing that computer thing from your apartment?" And there was the inevitable interrogation about my life choices, served right between the cranberry sauce and green bean casserole. "It's a software development company, Mom," I corrected quietly. "We're working on algorithmic trading solutions. "Oh please," Michael interrupted, laughing so hard he nearly choked on his wine. "You in what army? Your company is just you and your college roommate coding in your pajamas." Dad cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable but unwilling to challenge his star son. Michael had always been the golden child, Harvard Business School, fast track to executive position at Parker Tech, perfect wife, perfect house in the suburbs. Meanwhile, I was the disappointment who'd turned down a real job to start my own company. "The platform we're developing could revolutionize how small investors I tried again. "Emma, honey," my mother interrupted, "wouldn't it be easier to just get a normal job? Michael could put in a word for you at Parker Tech. In the HR department maybe." I felt my cheeks burn. HR department. Because obviously, that's all I was qualified for in their eyes, despite my master's in computer science and 5 years of experience in quantitative analysis. "My company is doing fine," I said firmly. "We're close to launching our first major product. Michael's laughter cut through the air again. "Your little startup is pathetic, sis. You're playing at being a businesswoman while real companies like ours are changing the industry." I gripped my fork tighter, thinking about the countless nights I'd spent perfecting my code, the savings I'd poured into development, the preliminary tests that showed such promising results. "Actually, I started, but Michael wasn't done. Want to hear something funny?" He turned to our parents. "Emma actually tried to sell her algorithm to Parker Tech last month. As if we'd want her amateur code in our professional system." Mom gasped. "Emma, you didn't." "I did," I said quietly. "And your Sita was very interested until I told him who you were," Michael smirked. "Saved him from making a huge mistake. Nobody takes your little coding project seriously, sis. You're embarrassing yourself." I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "Excuse me," I managed, heading for the door. "Oh, Emma, don't be dramatic," Mom called after me. "Michael's just trying to help." "Help? Right. Just like he'd helped by blocking my proposal at Parker Tech. Just like he'd helped by warning other companies in his network about my amateur work." What Michael didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd recognized something in Parker Tech's upcoming platform when they'd announced it last week. Something familiar. Too familiar. Back in my apartment, I pulled up my development environment and began typing. Lines of code scrolled across my screen as I dug deeper into Parker Tech's public test environment. There was hidden under layers of fancy new interfaces and flashy features was a core trading algorithm that looked suspiciously like mine. Not an exact copy, but close enough that it could only have come from one place: the detailed proposal I'd submitted to Parker Tech last month. My hands shook as I pulled up another window, checking the timestamps on my original code. Then I opened my email, finding the receipt of my provisional patent application filed 6 months ago. "Amateur code, huh?" I whispered to my empty apartment. I thought about Michael's smug face at dinner, about all the times he'd dismissed my work, about how he'd probably laughed when he handed my proposal to his development team. My phone buzzed, a text from my business partner and former roommate, Sophia. "You saw the similarities too, right? What are we going to do?" I smiled, thinking about Parker Tech's big launch next week. They were expecting 10,000 users to log in simultaneously, all running trades through their shiny new platform. "Through my algorithm. We're going to wait," I texted back. "And then we're going to show them exactly how amateur our code really is." I cracked my knuckles and turned back to my computer. It was going to be a long night, but revenge, like good code, is all about timing. The next 6 days were a blur of preparation and precise coding. Sophia and I worked around the clock, fueled by coffee and righteous anger. We weren't just fighting for our code anymore. We were fighting for every developer who'd ever been underestimated or dismissed. Are you sure about this? Sophia asked on day 4, her face illuminated by her monitor's glow. Once we pull this trigger. They stole our work, I replied, not looking up from my screen. They thought we were too small to fight back. Time to prove them wrong. Our plan was elegant in its simplicity. We weren't going to crash their system. That would be too obvious, too crude. Instead, we were going to let their own arrogance do the work for us. 2 days before the launch, my phone rang. Michael. Hey sis, his voice dripped with fake casualness. Just wanted to invite you to Parker Tech's launch event. So you can see how real software companies operate. I could practically hear his smirk through the phone. Wouldn't miss it, I replied sweetly. The morning of the launch, Parker Tech's headquarters was transformed into a tech wonderland. Giant screens displayed countdown timers, champagne flowed freely, and financial reporters from every major network crowded the trading floor. I stood in the back, wearing a simple black dress that made me practically invisible among the power suits and designer outfits. Sophia was in position at our office, monitoring everything. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael's voice boomed through the speakers. Welcome to the future of trading. The crowd applauded as he strutted across the stage, every inch the successful executive. The giant screens behind him showed the platform's login page, where thousands of users were already queuing up. In 5 minutes, he continued, we'll open the platform to our first 10,000 users. Our revolutionary algorithm will process over 1 million calculations per second, making split-second trading decisions that will change the industry forever. I checked my watch. Any second now. And now let the future begin. Michael pressed the ceremonial launch button. For a moment, everything seemed perfect. The platform opened, users flooded in, trades started processing. The crowd oohed and awed at the flowing data displayed on the giant screens. Then, exactly as we'd predicted, it happened. The first error was small, just a tiny hesitation in the trade processing. Then another. And another. The hesitations grew into delays. The delays grew into backlogs. My phone buzzed with Sophia's text. Timestamp authentications deploying. Stand by. I watched as confusion spread across the trading floor. The fancy interfaces were still working, still looking beautiful, but underneath where my stolen algorithm ran, things were starting to unravel. Minor technical difficulty, Michael announced, his confidence cracking slightly. Just a momentary. Then the screens changed. Instead of trading data, they displayed lines of code, my original code with my timestamps and digital signatures, running alongside their modified version. The room fell silent. A financial reporter pointed at the screen. Are those duplicate algorithms? Look at the timestamps, another called out. The original code is dated months before Parker Tech's development. Michael's face had gone from confident to confused to terrified in the span of 30 seconds. His eyes scanned the crowd frantically until they found me. I smiled and raised my phone, showing him the proof of my patent application. Stop the platform, he shouted, but it was too late. The evidence was being broadcast live across every screen in the building, and the reporters were already typing furiously on their phones. Then, as planned, the system shut down completely, displaying one final message. Error. Unauthorized use of patented algorithm detected. Please contact Emicore Solutions for licensing information. Chaos erupted. The crowd buzzed with questions and accusations. Investors grabbed their phones. Reporters swarmed toward the stage. And in the midst of it all, I walked calmly toward the exit, passing my brother who stood frozen in shock. Amateur code? I whispered as I passed. You should have read it more carefully before you stole it. The aftermath was explosive. By dinner time, every tech and financial news outlet was running the story. Startup developer exposes major software theft at Parker Tech launch. My phone wouldn't stop ringing, reporters, investors, tech companies. Even our parents called, though I let those go to voicemail. I wasn't ready for that conversation yet. In our office, Sophia and I watched the Parker Tech stock price plummet. Michael had been right about one thing. Their launch was definitely changing the industry, just not in the way he'd planned. Ms. Thompson, my new lawyer hired just hours after the incident, entered with a stack of papers. Parker Tech's legal team is requesting an emergency meeting. I smiled. I bet they are. The meeting was set for the next morning. I chose the location, a small conference room in our amateur startup office. Let them come to us for a change. At 9 a.m. sharp they arrived. Michael looking like he hadn't slept, their CEO, 3 lawyers and their CTO. The same CTO who'd been so interested in my algorithm before Michael intervened. Before we begin, their lead lawyer started, we want to emphasize that any similarities between the algorithms are purely coincidental. I opened my laptop and turned it around. On the screen was a side-by-side comparison of my original code and theirs, with key sections highlighted. You changed the variable names, I said quietly. Added some unnecessary loops. But you couldn't change the core architecture without breaking it, could you? Because you didn't actually understand how it worked. Michael wouldn't meet my eyes. The CTO studied his shoes. What do you want? The CEO asked finally. I slid a document across the table. Full licensing rights revert to Emacore Solutions. We get public credit for the algorithm. And I paused, looking directly at Michael, a seat on your board of directors. Absolutely not. Michael exploded. You can't. Michael, the CEO cut him off sharply. You've done enough. He turned to me. Ms. Thompson will need to discuss terms. The terms are non-negotiable, I interrupted. And you have 1 hour to decide. After that, I start returning calls from those tech reporters. I'm sure they'd love to hear all the details about how your revolutionary platform was built. They took 45 minutes. By that afternoon, the press releases were out. Parker Tech stock stabilized as they announced their new partnership with Emacore Solutions. Our small startup was suddenly the talk of the industry. That evening, I sat in my new corner office looking at the city lights. My phone buzzed. Mom again. This time I answered. Emma. She sounded like she'd been crying. We had no idea, your father and I, we should have. Yes, I said simply. You should have. Michael's been suspended pending an investigation, she continued. He's not handling it well. I thought about my brother, about all the times he'd dismissed and belittled me. He'll survive. It's a valuable lesson about underestimating people. A week later, I walked into my first Parker Tech board meeting. Michael's nameplate had been removed from his usual seat. Mine was there instead, shining and new. Emma Thompson, board member and chief innovation officer. The other board members watched me carefully as I took my seat. They'd all seen the code comparison by now. They knew exactly who I was and what I could do. Shall we begin? I smiled, opening my laptop. 3 months later, Emacore Solutions had grown from 2 people to 50. Our client list included names that once wouldn't even return our calls. And my amateur code? It was becoming the industry standard. As for Michael, he eventually found a position at a smaller firm. Sometimes I see him at industry events, though he tends to leave when I arrive. I heard he started taking coding classes at night school. Good for him. Mom and Dad came to visit my new office last week. They stood awkwardly among the bustling developers and gleaming monitors, looking out of place in their country club attire. We're proud of you, Dad said finally. We should have been proud all along. I showed them around, explained what we were working on. They didn't understand most of it, but they nodded and smiled. It was a start. Later that night, I found my old Parker Tech proposal, the one Michael had dismissed so easily. I pinned it to my office wall, a reminder that sometimes the best revenge isn't just success, but success that proves every doubter wrong. My phone buzzed, another company wanting to license our technology. I smiled, thinking about that Thanksgiving dinner that seemed so long ago. Your little startup is pathetic, Michael had said. Funny how a few lines of code can change everything. Epilogue. 1 year later. The annual Tech Innovation Awards were being held in the same hall where Parker Tech's disastrous launch had taken place a year ago. But this time I was on the stage for a different reason. Emacore Solutions has revolutionized algorithmic trading, the presenter announced. Their inclusive approach to financial technology has opened doors for thousands of small investors. Please welcome our Technology Innovator of the Year, Emma Thompson. As I accepted the award, I caught sight of my team, no longer just Sophia and me, but now 100 brilliant developers who'd chosen to join our vision. In the audience, I spotted my parents, actually beaming with genuine pride this time. Michael wasn't there, but I'd heard he was doing better. His coding classes had led to a junior developer position at a startup much like mine had once been. Last month he'd sent me an email, just 2 lines. "You were right. I'm sorry." I'd responded with a link to our internship program. He hadn't taken the offer yet, but the door was open. Parker Tech had transformed under our partnership. The board meetings were no longer about power plays and corporate politics. We were actually innovating again. The CTO who'd once dismissed my amateur code now regularly sought my input on new developments. But the real victory wasn't in the revenge or even the success. It was in what we'd built afterward. Emacore had launched a mentorship program for underestimated developers, particularly women in tech. Every month, I'd meet young programmers with brilliant ideas who just needed someone to take them seriously. "Your code matters," I'd tell them. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Sophia, now our COO, had started a coding boot camp for high school girls. Sometimes I'd visit and tell them our story, not to brag, but to show them what's possible when you believe in yourself. My office wall still held that rejected proposal, but now it was surrounded by other mementos: our first patent certificate, press clippings about our success, and photos of our growing team. Last week, a reporter asked me what I'd learned from the whole experience. "Success isn't just about code," I told her. "It's about believing in yourself when no one else will. It's about standing up when others try to push you down. And sometimes it's about showing the world that the underdog can not only win but can change the game entirely." The article she wrote ended with a quote from one of our junior developers. "At Emacore, we don't just write code. We write the future." Looking out from my office at our expanded headquarters, watching my team work on projects that would have seemed impossible a year ago, I smiled. My little startup had grown into something bigger than revenge, bigger than success. We'd created a place where no developer would ever be called amateur for daring to innovate, where no idea would be dismissed just because of who presented it. And that, more than any algorithm, was truly revolutionary. As for that pathetic little startup, it's now valued at $500 million. But who's counting? Sometimes, late at night when everyone's gone home, I'll sit in my office and pull up that original code, the one that started it all. The variables are still named the same way, the comments still in my voice. Simple, elegant, and powerful. Just like the truth.